All right, everyone, welcome to the advisory committee meeting for Tuesday, October 7th. We have three items on the agenda for tonight to report, review, and possibly vote on warrant articles 1, 3, and 4, which are unpaid bills, a possible fiscal year 26 budget amendment, and the proposed language changes to the bylaws. Are there any members of the public who wish to weigh in on any of these topics? Now would be the time for you to drop your name in the chat and we'll call on you. And if not, Neil, is it you that's going to present?
Sure.
Okay.
Where would you like to start? Would you
start with warrant article 1?
So Article 1, the Administration and Finance Subcommittee held the requisite public hearing. We are advised that we're not aware of any unpaid bills. And so after an exceedingly short discussion, the subcommittee recommends no action on Article 1. And we'll reconsider it should from the sky some unpaid bill come up before town meeting.
All right. Is there anyone in this committee who has anything to say about the absence of unpaid bills?
Melissa, are they still no unpaid bills?
Yep.
Okay.
Great work, Melissa.
Well, in that case, I think we're going to move.
You call that good cash management? Like, come on. I know lots of companies that pride themselves on having unpaid bills.
So in that case, we'll go to the motion of no action on warrant article 1 as made by the subcommittee. Let me share my screen. This is a motion for no action. Yes means no. Michael Berger.
Yeah.
Ben Birnbaum's not here. Harry Boers is not here. Cliff Brown may not be here. Anthony Buono.
Yes.
Elise Couture-Stone.
Yes.
John Doggett is not here. Harry Friedman.
Yes.
David Mark Goldstein.
Yes.
Neil Gordon.
Yes.
Susan Granoff.
Yes.
Harry Grossman.
Yes.
Kelly Hardebeck.
Not here.
Not here. Elisa Jonas.
Not here.
Janice Kahn.
Yes.
Brian Ladd.
Yes.
Alec Lebovitz.
Yes.
Carol Levin.
Yes.
Liz Linder.
Not here.
Pam Lodish.
Yes.
Jocelyn Murphy.
Yes.
Donnell O'Neill.
Yes.
Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Yes.
Rand Perler.
Yes.
David Pollock.
Yes.
Carlos Ridwejo.
Yes.
Margaret Robotham.
Yes.
Lee Selwyn.
Then not here.
Christine Westfall.
Yes.
And Elisa Jonas is now here.
Lisa, would you care to weigh in on the absence of unpaid bills under warrant article 1? We're recommending no action.
Sorry. Sure. Yes.
All right. So by a vote of 22 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions, we're recommending no action on warrant article 1. All right. Neil, why don't you take us through the current status?
Dennis,
Yes.
could Brookline Zoom guest host 2 identify themselves?
It's interesting. My camera must not be working on this computer.
Okay, thank you,
Lisa.
Lisa.
It's Lisa. Sorry.
Yep. And Lee Selwyn is now joining.
All right. So Neil, warrant article 3, potential budget amendment.
So warrant Article 3, potential budget amendment. As of our subcommittee meeting, we didn't have anything to act on Article 3, and perhaps Melissa Goff can give us an update.
Ms. Goff.
Sure. I'm going to need a little bit more time on Article 3. There's a couple of things that are still in flux. I can tell you the things that are ready to go. You have the recommendation that was published in the warrant around the use of the TNC funds. Those are the Uber and Lyft monies that the town gets. We usually get notification of the summer, and then we appropriate in the fall. That process might change because we're also hearing that the Department of Revenue is raising some concerns about appropriating funds after the tax before the tax rate is set. So we're talking about maybe recalibrating our schedule and maybe using the annual town meeting to appropriate those funds going forward. But for now, that's what we're looking to do with this article. The narrative also talked about potential adjustments for golf. As you know, the golf is kind of underway with their master plan and doing a lot of major work at the course. At the same time, they're also considering putting additional lights up at the driving range and thought that they might be able to access some retained earnings in order to do that. We can't access retained earnings until free cash is certified, and it's unlikely to happen in time for this town meeting. So if they have a proposal, it will be something that they'd likely consider in May. I had a meeting today with the golf team, and obviously if we had better news on that, we'd want to try and escalate that. I've also encouraged the golf team to reach out to the capital subcommittee to make sure that you guys are fully informed about what their plans are. I know they've been talking about it at the Park and Rec Commission. So that is not ready for prime time either. And the last piece that we'll do is adjustments related to debt service. So our bond sale was later in the year, and we have adjustments mostly around the debt exclusion. So basically, we got a better rate than what we had budgeted for. So we'll be bringing down revenue, and then there'll be a reduction in expense at the same level. And so there's no impact on the budget there. And a minor tweak to the golf debt service budget with the same rationale as well. So those are I'll have a memo for the board when it's ready to go, and then it will be ready for your consideration once that's all in place. One other thing that we're also still waiting for more information on is, I'm sure people are aware of the issues around the transfer station and the floor that failed I think over the summer. And so we're just waiting for a couple more quotes that DPW is assembling around potential options to deal with the floor issue. So,
Wait, or do those options include reserve fund requests or something
well,
else?
I think it's a question of whether or not the timing would allow for an adjustment at town meeting, or whether or not it's better to just go for reserve funds. So we could use the budget amendment if we were able to kind of do it in that way. So it's one of two options. So.
And so for our scheduling purposes, when do you anticipate having the memoranda that you just described?
So Kevin had asked for 2 more weeks, so probably that was last week, so maybe another week.
Okay. Harry?
So I can deal with people raising their hands, or I can deal with people putting their name in the chat. I can't deal with both.
Sorry, Harry, I forgot.
So Jocelyn and then Anthony.
And Danell had raised his hand.
Danell had raised his hand, and so Jocelyn, Danell, and then Anthony.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to flesh out a couple of things. First of all, I wasn't aware that there had been a failure at the transfer station. Had that been discussed before?
So this is something that happened, I want to say, I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but
3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, the DPW has been dealing with, they have an emergency permit in order to continue to use the station and have the trash. So now we're trying to figure out what the fix would be, whether it be, shoring up the building and the floor, or whether or not we need a structure that could accommodate the trash. So these are a couple of options that they're considering.
Is there any idea what caused that failure?
Well, I think the building itself has been in disrepair. It's part of the reason why we asked for feasibility money at the last town meeting to look at the overall DPW footprint so that we could figure out what to do. Unfortunately, the floor failed before we could get that study completed.
Thank you, Melissa. My other question relates to the transportation matter, because I know there has been some controversy about using the funds that were previously used for, I think, medical transportation for seniors. I may have gotten that wrong. and that this proposal will actually take away from that program. And again, this may be misinformation, but that's my current understanding. So will there be an opportunity to discuss that, or has this decision been made? What is the status of that?
So the Transportation Board made the recommendation, but ultimately it's town meeting that makes the decision on the appropriation of funds.
Got
So I am having lunch on Friday with the Council on Aging Director, so I can make sure. I thought it was a collaborative proposal, so
Could be.
you know,
Yeah.
I'll get more information after I meet with her.
Okay, my last question relates to the golf course because it may be no secret that I'm a dark sky proponent. And you know, I know the idea of lighting the driving range has been floated, but I also know that it hasn't been formally discussed by the Park and Recreation Commission. It came up on an agenda item, but it was pulled. So, you know, I just want to, I suppose, give some heads up. You know, that could be considered, in my view, it would be considered a substantial alteration of an open space. Clearly, it would be dramatically changing the character of the golf course, and there's been no public process. So there would need to be a robust public process because, as you can imagine, lighting up the driving range like an airfield would be presumably very considered an interference and, you know, a quality of life issue for the neighbors. So that needs to happen, I think, before there's any discussion of budget. And I just really wanted to highlight that there has been no public process, and I believe there needs to be a significant public process, including perhaps, you know, a committee of 5, a committee of 7, whatever it is, as a design review.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I definitely have encouraged the team to make sure that they reach out to, you know, I think Michael Berger is a liaison as well. Carol, I'm not sure if he's reached out to you yet either. But I do know that, you know, with the Park and Rec Commission, I would anticipate they would have some sort of public process noticing abutters and all of that as well. So May is probably more appropriate for this type of proposal.
Got it. Thank you.
Danelle, did you have a comment or question?
Yes. So thank you, Harry. I had a two finger on what Jocelyn just said in regards to the lights, because, you know, so I was I'm still am a big supporter of having the lights, like Jocelyn. So, because of the revenue that it will bring, because of the money that it will bring. So I know there hasn't been a discussion about it. I remember years ago in the design review of that, before we got it, you know, the bird sanctuary was there, so we couldn't do the driving range at first. So when will there be a public discussion on the lights? Because that was I know that was one of the major issues. But I mean, that revenue stream, if the butters are cool with it, have they been notified? Like Jocelyn said, has there been a discussion about that? Because I know that was a problem, but I know that would be a major revenue stream if the abutters allow that to happen. Thank you.
Yeah. So if we wait for the annual town meeting, it would become part of the normal budget process. But then there would also be a separate process that Park and Rec, as they consider the proposal itself. So I know that they've just started talking about it, so it is still early on, but I would anticipate that they would also be having a public process as well.
Thank you. I mean, even the restaurant should be included in that discussion. You know what I mean? That restaurant that's there, because, you know, they're gonna have to feed folks who are at the drive range. Thank you.
Yep.
Anthony.
Hey, Melissa, if I wanted to learn more about the bond auction, is there a place I could go to on the town website, or can I send you an email with my questions on how the bond auction went?
Yeah, you can send me an email. I think that when we went in front of the board for approval, there was material in that. I can pull that out, but if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Cool. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Yep.
Carlos.
Thanks, Harry. Hi, Melissa. I wanted to see if you could expand a little bit more on the transfer station. So are there options? Is it to like a short-term fix to structurally fix the slab that has been poked? And then the other second option would be, if that can't be done, a temporary, as in for the next 3 to 5 year outdoor structure that keeps the trash from getting wet, I guess. Is that the reason why the alternative would be used?
Yeah, I think you know, once we get the full picture from DPW and the building department, then we can talk about the thought process behind the decision that we're proposing.
Okay, but those are the two directions that
Those are the
they're
two things that we've discussed. We've met on this twice internally. So, and you know, DPW and building has been doing a lot of research around it as well.
okay. And then does Massachusetts EPA have to, or Department of Environmental Protection have to get involved, or?
So we would need, you know, we're currently, I think, operating under an emergency permit. So to the extent that we need an extension, I think, you know, Kevin just said, you know, we need to demonstrate that we're working through the problem and that we're, you know, trying to find a solution. So.
And do you know how long that extension is, I mean, that permit is for?
I don't know. I know initially it was 30 days, but I think we've gone beyond that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Fran Perler.
Hi, two comments. One is I tried to look into this warrant article on the website, and it's the only link that when you press goes nowhere. So
I
there's
just
no
noticed that
information.
myself when I tried to call it up for this meeting. So I will look to fix that because it should be working. So
Now, regarding the TNC, it is true that the head of the senior center and the head of the teen center have a proposal for a pilot project to use $158,000 of TNC for this pilot transport. It's also true, and the committee should be aware for overall budget issues, that the senior center is losing $200,000 in ARPA funds for transportation, and previously had $100,000 devoted to the other transportation projects. And over 11,000 people use, or trips have been made on the medical transport. And there, how shall I say it? There's a panic among seniors about what is going to happen. And, you know, our seniors that the senior center serves are the elders that have, where inflation has gone beyond their pensions, and or who are real estate poor, and they can't afford paying for medical transport, you know, having the senior center charge for it. So although the pilot program, you know, is something people are very interested in, we're in desperate need of finding funds for medical transport. And I hope the brilliant minds here could help, you know, Emily and the senior center figure out ways of getting this done, because it's an essential program and it's in dire straits for next year.
yeah,
I hope
unfortunately.
that clarifies the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I know that TNC funds are not long-term either. They're supposed to sunset at a certain point. So this isn't really a long-term funding source for that program either, unfortunately, unless they extend it. But I haven't heard anything about that.
Thank you. Janice Kahn.
Yes, thanks, Harry. So both the golf course and the transfer station are in precinct 15. And so I want to provide a little bit of context for this board, for the advisory committee. So for the golf course, as Jocelyn said, there's been no public process. And I appreciate Donnell's comments in wanting this. It's important that there be some negotiation with the abutters. These lights can be very intrusive, and we want to make sure that it will work for everyone. So, you know, absolutely public process. This should not be fast tracked. And my understanding is that it might be in next year's CIP was one of the proposals I heard. So just, you know, just adding a little context there. I do want to definitely add some context to the transfer station. So my neighborhood, my street directly abuts the transfer station. And when there was a failure, which was about 2.5 weeks ago, we started getting noxious odors in the neighborhood, so to the point where people could not be outside at all, you know, without being really uncomfortable. And I want to give you a message. I'm hoping that Melissa will convey this for me, that our neighborhood received zero communication from the town as to what was happening. So we did our own detective work. And I will tell you what's happening is that there are like sales, huge sales that have been put on the transfer station, and the garbage is being dumped many feet high on the ground under this sale. And the way the sale is, it's directing the odors to the neighborhood. So I know this was an emergency situation, and we get it. And my neighborhood has always worked very closely with DPW. We have a very good relationship with DPW. To me, this was a real aberration that the neighborhood was not at all contacted. No one reached out. No one talked to us. You know, we can't walk through the woods to Skyline Park now at certain hours because it is really terrible. And there's another thing I've been noticing too, Melissa, is that the trucks that are coming in, when they leave, that there's trash on both sides of Incinerator Drive now, that they seem to fly out of the trucks. And so that should also be looked at. I noticed that some random people have been coming with plastic bags to pick up garbage, but really we shouldn't be doing that. That the people who are trucking the trash in should really be more considerate of the area. This is a reserve. This is a natural environment. It's embedded in a natural environment, and we really care about it. And so so I'm saying this because I really want the town to talk to the neighborhood and really keep us apprised of any developments, and really work with us to make this really very terrible situation for my neighborhood, to make it just a little bit more understandable, and to have us be sort of partners in helping to resolve this faster. It is really a terrible situation. Public health should also be involved in taking a look at it. And the other concern we have is that they're planning to put deodorizers on. And so the neighborhood is very concerned that these not be toxic in any way, contaminating the groundwater around the area, because that does also flow into Lost Pond, which also then flows into the other waterways that it connects to. So again, we want to be partners, and we really we were very much blindsided by this. And so that's the tale from my part of Brookline. But I just wanted to share it with everyone to know that that this is really an issue and a concern of the neighborhood, and really beyond, because we take everybody's trash right to our streets. So so thank you for listening, and you know, I hope we can work together also.
Yep, I'll bring that back to the team for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dennis, that seems to be it for comments. I'm assuming warrant Article 3 will simply go back to the subcommittee.
Yes, so I think I'm hoping that the members of the subcommittee were listening closely to the concerns, so that many of these can be raised when the memo is available in a couple of weeks, and follow up with Melissa, and then we'll bring it back. Then we'll bring it back here. We'll schedule that with Carla once we have the timetable a little bit better worked out.
Jocelyn, sorry.
Thank you. Could I just ask one final question, because it might be timely? I think you said, Melissa, it was an old building and it fell apart, but has there been an investigation as to what caused this? Because, you know, obviously if a third party caused it, you know, whether it was the vendor or one of the vendor subsidiaries or one of the vendor's agents, you know, clearly the town should go after them if it was negligence. Was there an investigation, or did someone just casually say, oh, it was an old building?
I'm not sure what who determined what the cause of the failure is. So I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
So let's move on to final item, warrant article 4. Neil, I think that's you again.
That would be me again. So warrant article 4 is petitioned by the town clerk. I think we're all familiar with the travails of updating the bylaw that's been going on in the town clerk's office for some time. We dealt with a resolution on that subject 6 months ago, or last town meeting. This, I believe, is the last piece, and it is intended to be non-substantive in terms of not changing the law in Brookline, but to correct for changes in the names of various boards, committees, and commissions, otherwise make non-substantive changes to the general bylaw as the final step in completing the bylaw update project. The town clerk was not at our subcommittee meeting, but I did have several conversations with him prior to, and a conversation with town council, and reviewed specifically the question of how is this vetted, and what assurance do we have? Because we, the subcommittee and the advisory committee, are in no position to go through and be assured that these are non-substantive changes. The answer is that they've been reviewed by town council, they've been reviewed by the town clerk, they've been reviewed by the various departments as necessary. All conclude, I'm told, that they're non-substantive. And if you go through the list of items as printed in the warrant, you can pretty much determine the same, that nothing indicates that these are substantive changes. They are just changes to update, and there are lots of overtime changes in the names of boards, committees, and commissions. There are 2 amendments. One, well, both clear with the moderator. There is one addition. It's cited in the minutes in the report. It adds, I quote, Chapter 4.8 is amended to change, quote, Executive Officer of Elder Affairs, unquote, to, quote, Executive Office of Aging and Independence, unquote. And then the last is a correction in section 5.3.2 to correct the spelling of Olmsted. What I just said was pretty much the discussion that the subcommittee had. There were no public comments during the public hearing. There was some question, and we kept it light, and we didn't want to spend a lot of time. You'll notice on the list that we're changing bylaw in its various spellings to bylaw with hyphen. I'm pretty sure that's not going to change the law in Brookline, whether it's bylaw hyphen, bylaw not hyphen. There
And
are
capitalized or not, also presumably.
Yeah, capitalized or not, it's not going to mislead anybody. But for the purpose of consistency, and in particular consistency going forward, a conversation that I had with the town clerk is who is going to be responsible for checking for style, let's call it that, style and consistency of these sorts of non-substantive issues going forward. Who is going to do this? Is this going to fall on the beady-eyed members of the advisory committee, or the various subcommittees or the subcommittee chairs? And inevitably, these sorts of changes are going to have to be made again. And so let me just say that I'm having a conversation with the clerk, and with town council about how we might avoid having to bring this to town meeting in a way that doesn't allow for shenanigans of pretending something is non-substantive when in fact it is. So stay tuned for that. I just want to let you know the question of who is going to be responsible for vetting warrant articles, consider it rhetorical until it isn't. Having said that, as amended, the subcommittee recommends favorable action on Article 4 unanimously.
So it's unfortunate that we don't have town clerk either at your subcommittee meeting or here tonight, evidently. Town council is here. Joe, do you have anything to add to this, particularly as it relates to that fundamental question of whether the meat of some of these articles might have been subtly changed as a result of this process?
Good evening, Joe Callahan, Town Council, and I apologize for my video not appearing. I have a new work from home setup and I'm still figuring it out. So you don't get to see my pretty face tonight, but I agree with everything Neil said. My one addition would be, it wasn't just town council, it was actually 4 lawyers in my office that reviewed this. So I gave it to all of our lawyers, except our labor and employment lawyer, to see if there was anything substantive. And it was unanimous among the 4 of us that there wasn't anything. We gave Ben some suggestions on things that we saw that he did add. So, you know, the idea of whether a change is non-substantive, you know, is kind of a hard thing, because some lawyers may say, whoa, you know, bylaw with a hyphen means something totally different. You know, and then a court's going to have to decide that. I can't stop lawyers from making stupid arguments, but in our opinion, none of the changes are substantive. But if anyone has, you know, any concerns about a particular change, I'm happy to address that, except for adding a hyphen. I lost on that argument. I wanted to go with the SJC style guide that had no hyphen, but even I didn't get everything I wanted. So.
Not too late.
Susan Granoff.
Okay, thank you. So I applaud the town clerk for undertaking this endeavor. I think it's much needed and way overdue. Just to clarify, I think one of the important subtle changes of this is that it makes it clear that there is one town general bylaw with individual chapters, and not, as we keep referring, well, this warrant article is a new bylaw. They're not separate bylaws. We have a town general bylaw, and then within that, there are individual chapters that are added or amended. And I think that's an important conceptual change. One thing, I have a couple of questions related to this change, and that is, I checked the zoning bylaw as it currently appears on the town website and as it appears in the e-version of it. And that still uses articles instead of chapters. So I'm assuming that at some time in the future, town clerk will be giving submitting a warrant article that comparably changes the terminology of the zoning bylaw. And does town council know about plans for doing so?
Yes, I do. And that is Ben's intention. That I am kind of surprised at that distinction, because it's the same vendor. But there is an effort, once the general bylaw has gone through the process, to then kind of match up the zoning bylaw, which was done a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there is an effort to kind of come up with a town of Brookline bylaw style guide, and that's again kind of in the future after this after this warrant article is adopted, or hopefully adopted.
Okay, before I became an attorney,
I was a college textbook developmental editor for 25 years. So this is my jam. This is the kind of thing I actually care about, in addition, of course, to the law. The other question I have is, even though it's not part of this article, I think it's critically important that the terminology used on the town website reflects these changes, because otherwise it's very confusing and sends a mixed message. It's not a requirement under any of these laws, but I think it's essential if we're making this change that we want it to be consistently, the terminology be consistently and accurately referred to on the website. And again, it's unfortunate that the town clerk isn't here, but I hope that that's conveyed. I also think that the town meetings members association handbook should be made consistent with these changes, because the petitioners are often looking to that handbook for stylistic guidance. And so there's a lot of different parts to making certain that this is fully implemented in a consistent way. And I think that all of this is part of that. As a subcommittee chair, I don't think it's a problem for us to simply make certain that future warrants, assuming this is passed by town meeting and approved by the AG's office, to make certain that any future warrant articles have the correct style. But I agree with you, Joe, that it would be very helpful if we could have a simple statement of style as far as terminology goes. And particularly when you look at the zoning bylaws, again, they're still using the plural. And so I think that it's an important conceptual change to go from bylaws to bylaw, with or without a hyphen. The other question I had, and it's just a question, within the general revisions, there's one sentence that says references to the zoning bylaws and zoning bylaws are amended to read zoning bylaw, and with the correct terminology. Do we not want the same thing to say references to the general bylaws and general bylaws are amended to read general bylaw? Even though if you actually read through the smaller aspects, the individual aspects of the article, that is essentially what we're saying. But shouldn't there be a simple statement of that so that it's clear that this is in fact what is being done?
I can check with Ben. I did take notes on your suggestions. One thing about the website, you might be familiar with Christine Metcalf's efforts at branding. So I would speak to her about making the website consistent. We actually do have a working group on making sure the website is compliant with the ADA. So everything is OCR'd and accessibility. So that could be shifted over to that group too. But that's certainly something we could do. I would just suggest it is not something that Ben probably has the capacity to do, but our IT staff and Christina. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had to say.
Okay.
Alec Lebovitz.
Thanks, Harry. First, Susan, you took the words right out of my mouth. One of my suggestions was going to be that since we are in effect establishing a new style parameters for the construction of our bylaw, perhaps we could think about integrating some kind of style guide into the town meeting handbook, or town meeting members handbook rather, or we could develop one under the auspices of the AC and potentially send to petitioners along with their questionnaires before they go to their public hearings at subcommittees. I think there's a couple junctures we could consider for when to provide a resource to that effect to warrant article petitioners. I also am a little disappointed that a representative of the town clerk's office isn't here, mainly so I could thank them. This is, as we know from our discussions back in May and before that, a massive undertaking that Ben and his team has been leading on for several years now. And I think it's worth celebrating when something of that kind of magnitude is accomplished in what looks to be a very promising way. And I do also, in the vein of kind of questioning whether this addresses every individual change we'll ultimately need to make, which I'm sure it doesn't. I still think we shouldn't let the enemy be or the perfect be the enemy of the good, rather, in this case. I think what's really important to keep in mind with this warrant article is this is what will authorize Ben and his team to move forward with getting the E-code version of the general bylaw up and running on the website, which, if folks recall our conversations at town meeting in May, will really be bringing us into alignment with comparable communities in Greater Boston and in Norfolk County. And in particular, for members of the public, I think the benefit really can't be understated in making our bylaws much more accessible, easier to digest, easier to search for individual chapters and provisions. So I think this is a key article in bringing forward or to fruition one of the really outstanding transparency initiatives that the town has been undertaking for several years. And I look forward to enthusiastically supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Jonas.
Well, this is very minor, but with regard to the hyphen or not hyphen on bylaw, that has been one of my most frustrating inconsistencies in the bylaw. So I'm glad it's being addressed. But I did happen to do research, and I agree with Joe that the lack of a hyphen is what is the current more appropriate spelling of bylaw. And so I'm just wondering, on what basis was Joe overturned? Because it seems like he's recommended what generally it seems should have been what was used. And I know this is very minor, but this has been a particular irritation of mine as I've been reading the bylaw.
I would suggest you take that up with Ben, but I don't want you to think that it was a violent arm wrestling that I lost out on. But I expressed my opinion and it wasn't listened to. So yes. So.
I will point
You'll
out
have to ask him why. So yes.
Just as an aside, if you go to the town of Arlington's website, you see inconsistent spelling, capitalization, and hyphenation, just like ours, right? This is a well understood problem that I think must start with the original enabling legislation having a hyphen in it at the state level.
Right, which authorizes the town to enact bylaws with a hyphen.
Right.
Right. Interestingly, though, the same section, when it talks about corporations and their boards of directors and corporate bylaws and insurance company bylaws, you start seeing inconsistencies, hyphen or no hyphen, and that may have to do with when the particular statute was enacted.
Lisa, are you all set?
Well, I mean, it's so minor, but I guess I am just thinking, if we're bothering to make changes, why wouldn't we be using what's the most appropriate modern usage? Very minor.
Well, do you want to make an amendment?
Will it?
Joe, will that now? If you do it now, it'll be an amendment. Forever after, it will require a warrant article.
Well, Joe, if there's any reason not to, I would make that amendment.
Okay, so when we get to amendments, Dennis, call on Elisa. Dennis, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I had a question actually. So, and this is a question that by rights would be for town clerk, but it's possible that Joe or Melissa may have some insight into this. So the description for this warrant article basically says, after this is approved, then we will be able to update the website with the E-code version, and that's undeniably true. But I was wondering if we had a better sense for how soon after, when we would actually expect to see the fruits of this labor available to the public.
I don't have a good answer. I'm sorry. All I know is it's soon. We have, you know, it in a pretty good form now. So I think it is just waiting for town meeting approval. And then it could be pretty quick after that. But Ben has a much better idea of the details on that schedule.
And then do you happen, as part of this, I know we've been doing an enormous amount of digitization and this reconciliation. And so we will clearly have the bylaw in its current adjusted, you know, cleaned up state available. How far back, if at all, is the history preserved as part of that process?
Again, that would be a question for Ben. I know some of it is. I don't think a lot of it is. So, but you know, how far back it goes, again, you know, Ben has been, well, we've only been assisting, but Ben's been, you know, running this process. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I will follow up with Ben.
Right.
Harry Friedman. I hate to be a killjoy, but in my 20-something years in town meeting, I've seen a lot of time wasted. But this has to go to the very top. I think this is a complete waste of time and money. I would point out that consistency is a hobgoblin of little minds, and I will be voting against this. Neil Gordon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comment there. We you know, we deal with the warrant articles as they come without judging them at the subcommittee level. I do want to bring to the attention of the subcommittees and committee chairs in particular who are dealing with and making recommendations that may include bylaws. Article 4 will be voted early on night 1 and will include, I suspect it's going to pass, and I suspect that the changes that are in here for the most part will be made without amendment, with or without the hyphen. And I suggest that we use that as our style guide, lest we get to Article 9, for example, and you know, don't, you know, use the word chapter instead of article, and you know, bylaw with or without the hyphen, depending upon what Article 4 says, and whatever else might be in there, because I suspect that's going to, if it's not pointed out before the vote, the bylaw will be the bylaw, and the inconsistencies will be right back, starting with the AG's approval of Article 4, Article 9, and whatever else is on the list. I don't know whether that changes your vote or anybody else's vote, Harry.
Not mine, but thank you, Neil. Susan, put your name in the list if you want to speak.
Okay.
Linda Olson-Pelkey.
You're muted, Linda.
I'll start over. Thank you. I have a question. I think it's for town council, and I'm wondering what the thinking is behind leaving in Chapter 5.10 neighborhood conservation districts. Now, I know that we had a court case about the one neighborhood conservation district that we tried to adopt and we lost. And yet, here it is in our bylaw. And what's being amended is the verbiage around when a building permit can be issued. And I'm also kind of surprised to see that in the bylaw at all, which makes me wonder, are all the procedures that the building commissioner goes through for determining whether a permit request is rejected or not, et cetera, is that all in the bylaw, or is it in the zoning bylaw? And why are we leaving in neighborhood conservation districts?
So let me start with why are we leaving it in and where it is, and I'll answer the where it is in a second. So the why we're leaving it in, again, we kind of considered, I don't want that to make you think that we had a 3-hour meeting about the consideration, but we considered, you know, excluding bylaws that had been struck down or not approved.
Mhm.
I thought that was an extra effort, and would suggest that it be done separately. This was really just trying to be style. It could be arguably non-substantive because I'll tell Dan you can't enforce that bylaw because it's been struck down. But there's lots of examples of this. So if you go into the Mass General laws, you'll see a lot of crimes that are still punishable by death. There was a constitutional amendment in the 70s eliminating the death penalty. The legislature has never gone through and struck every single penalty by death. We could, but there's a lot of effort in that people then get exercised about, kind of revisiting that. So it was my suggestion that we don't strike bylaws that have been not approved or struck down by the courts. I look at that as a separate effort.
All right, except that there is at least one of these that I've seen in here that was about the Community Preservation Committee, I think. And it was somehow what I'm gleaning from the fact that it's taken out here, somehow it got put into the bylaws before the town vote happened on it. Then the town vote failed. And then it gets the reference to the state statute has to get taken out of the bylaws. So this contradicts what you just said about not doing the removal of things that weren't adopted. So I don't really care, but I'm just pointing out to you that that's an inconsistency.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'll double check on that, but I understood that as like an editorial comment or an editor's comment that we made a reference to something wrong, or like the kind of example with the Elder Affairs. It was Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and now it has a new name that I don't even know what it is. So like, that I think I look at that as more of an editor's note, but I can double check on that.
yeah, I think maybe you do want to look at it because I thought it was relevant because of the date being 2006. Because, yeah, all right. Thank you.
Susan Granoff.
Oh, okay. So although I'm just as eager as Neil to get this implemented, I really think that doing so in the middle of town meeting, so that all of the warrant articles that come after a vote is taken on warrant article 4 suddenly needs to use the correct language, is going to complicate the process needlessly and create a lot of paperwork that doesn't need to be done. I think we should wait until after the Attorney General has approved this, and then everything can be changed at once. I think there may be a simple way of making that change so that it's a universal change. And I don't know exactly the mechanism that the town clerk's office would use, but it might be a lot simpler to do it at that stage than having each of the individual warrant articles that will be going to town meeting after warrant article 4 have to individually incorporate this change. So I just think let's wait until after the AG's office has approved this, and then everything, both the prior warrant articles and the ones that we pass at this current town meeting can be changed at the same time.
David Pollock.
So I sort of have come at this from the opposite end from the comments Susan just made. And as a subcommittee chair for the last month, I've been typing bylaw very carefully with a hyphen and without an S, and made sure that proposed language is now consistently throughout everything coming through land use subcommittee. So should Elisa move to amend what's on the table with bylaw, I recommend against amending it just because I've already been incorporating it.
Thank you. Linda Olson-Pelkey.
Sorry to bring this up, but I did see somewhere that we're correcting the spelling of Olmsted, which is very important. However, I'm reading it spelled incorrectly on page 5 of my warrant article. Under the demolition delay bylaw, it lists the local historic districts, and it says Olmsted Richardson. Is that the Olmsted we're changing? Because it's not marked here.
Yes.
Okay, why isn't it
I think
obvious?
I think it's specified as 5.3.2
Okay.
in the report.
Well, okay, but this is the thing we're adopting and it's not spelled correctly, so
It says
I don't
correct the
get it.
spelling in section. It's an amendment, correct? the
Oh,
spelling in
okay.
section
All right.
5.3.2.
All right. I didn't
Linda, the
understand that.
subcommittee is
Motion that
amending.
will be
Okay,
made.
all right. Thank you.
If I could get a quick two finger, Harry.
Sure.
I had a conversation with the moderator. The moderator would take, if Article 4 passes and we have bylaw amendments that use the old style, I'm paraphrasing, he would accept those sorts of changes as Scrivener's, equivalent of Scrivener's errors. I think his exact words were, with regard to hyphen or not, whatever, I think he said. He'll take, so he'll, either way, he'll take it as Scrivener's error. I think, use your best judgment as to whether Article 4 passes or does not. But I don't think it's going to require amendment from the floor of town meeting. It's just going to require reference by the moderator to where those changes are going to be made.
Janice Kahn.
The test of whether they are in fact non-substantive.
Harry, were you
Thank you.
saying we're all set?
No, I said Janice Kahn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Dennis. And actually, this is, I've been thinking about your earlier comment, which is why I'm commenting now. We went some years ago, there was an effort to have in our bylaws the historical evolution of each bylaw, or what is a chapter now, I guess. And I don't know, Dennis, whether that was you who.
That was me.
That was you who was doing it. That's what I thought. And really, it makes a lot of sense since it is a living document. And I think that the history of each part is relevant. It tells us a lot about our thinking, our evolution as a community. And I think that's not an insignificant issue. I look at the bylaw for, I refer to it all the time when I want to learn something. That adds another dimension to us as a municipality. And I would like to see that not just retained, but enhanced in whatever we do. I think that there is a lot of value to that. I go through the old Brookline histories all the time, the annual reports, and there is a lot of really excellent information in there. It gives us a real flavor of the people who lived here, how we lived, what was important, what we valued. And so I think that's not an insignificant comment that you made earlier, Dennis. And I totally subscribe to putting some effort into that. Thank you.
So Dennis, now we're all set.
All right, so we're going to take a motion from the subcommittee for favorable action on warrant Article 4 as amended and by them and printed in our packet.
Right, that's, yes. So on behalf of the subcommittee, I will move Article 4 as printed in the warrant, plus the two amendments that are in the packet. The first adding chapter 4.8 and so on, the Executive Office of Elder Affairs language, and the second being in section 5.3.2, the correction of the spelling of Olmsted.
Right, so I think that under the assumption that this passes and becomes the motion, we will still have to have a conversation with the moderator and others about the right way to present this as something that the public can read and be generally aware of, but we don't have to solve that as we stand here
So
tonight.
my intent for the combined reports were to include the entire motion.
Right.
Right, and then also, rather than a black line of the motion as changed from the warrant, because there are only these little changes, I think we just say it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's supposed to be a full revision of the bylaws available for the public to, pursue if they want to see what the combined version looks like post editing. We weren't mailing that out to everyone, but it was supposed to be available, and I want to make sure that it is. All right, and before we go to vote on this, Elisa, are you making a motion?
Sure, since why not do what's currently the most appropriate spelling, even if David has already worked on changing it to by-law kind of documents what Susan was saying, that it's kind of confusing to do it in the middle of town meeting. I amend that BY-LAW be changed to BY-LAW.
Yeah, the question is, it's easy to say that, standardize on the use of, BYLAW as the canonical representation of that concept. What I'm concerned about is the right way to turn it into, the actual motion for town meeting, which is going to be an enumeration of every single place where that word exists.
No, that's not, no, because in Article 4 itself, the second of the general revisions, it's right on, it starts Article 4, then there's an introductory paragraph, then there is a heading called General Revisions. The second is the term, quote, bylaw without the hyphen is amended to read bylaw with the hyphen. I think if you just reverse those, that becomes the amended motion.
Can you, are you looking at that on a screen right now? Because if you are, can you share your?
I'm looking at what they, I get one of those like a real one.
Okay.
Susan?
Yeah, also, there are individual underneath a couple of lines below what Neil just read, references to the zoning bylaws and zoning bylaws that one has no hyphen, one has a hyphen, are amended to read zoning bylaw with a hyphen. That too would have to be changed.
So does the one about ordinance.
Yep.
Yep.
So there may be some minor ones, but I would think that for the purpose of our vote tonight, it might be sufficient simply to say that the main thing would be to spell bylaw without a hyphen. As you know, and wherever that gets implicated throughout, that change would be made, rather than going through all of these pages and making certain that every single reference within the lines and lines of copy say the same thing. I think if we understand what it is that you're changing, it can then be considered a Scrivener error, where it would appear with a hyphen instead of without a hyphen, and it could be easily changed.
I'll find them all in preparing the report for the combined reports.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Because I think it is 100% clear to everyone here what the intent of what we're voting on is, but it's extremely important that we can figure out the right way to communicate that in the report, so that town meeting can understand how to vote on it without having to think about it in layers.
I will submit.
All right.
I'll submit my draft of the revised of the motion, right, to Dennis.
Okay.
Hopefully with all of the corrections, we'll get one more read, and then, if we miss one, as you said, it's the Scrivener's error.
Right, and then presumably this will go back to select board as well. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, Harry.
Linda Olson Pelkey.
Oh, I didn't realize I was on the list. Hang on. I was looking something up. I actually am sympathetic to being consistent with the state enabling legislation. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And so I was trying to find out if Dennis really was correct that that is where the reference comes from, but I haven't gotten there yet because I was frantically researching while we were talking. So I guess maybe Joe knows the answer to that question.
I know the answer to the question. The enabling legislation that authorizes towns to enact bylaws uses the hyphen.
Okay, do you know, well, I guess it's not relevant yet until we go to amend the zoning bylaw, but I believe it's the case in that enabling legislation as well, that it's hyphened. So that makes me want to vote against Elisa. I'm sorry.
No, it's a minor issue. I don't really care. I'm just, given what I read, it seemed like the alternative approach is the approach that's currently in use, and whatever happens, happens. But I do want to mention to Harry, the reason why inconsistencies actually are very important is if you're doing research and you're searching for a term, you might not be catching all the different spellings of that term. So if you're looking,
That's only if you're using computers, Elisa.
oh, sorry, yes, I forgot.
Yeah, by the way, that concept is one of the reasons we have all of these updates here, because when we changed selectman to select board member and select board and so on and so forth, we didn't capture everything that had, an apostrophe, something or other.
Elise, did you want to ask a question, or was that simply rhetorical?
Oop. No, I do have a question. So I'm trying to follow along with all of these different things, and I'm an editor for the Gender Equity in Museums newsletter. So I'm just really curious about this back and forth that we're having about a hyphen, and largely, I think we're spending a lot of maybe a little too much time on it, but I'm a little confused. If we go with this less formal, just bylaw, sans the hyphen, what are we achieving here?
Nothing.
It's
So
not,
why change it?
well, it's not less formal. It's just that is the current way that term is spelled in modern American English. So
I'm not even sure that.
It is, it's a contemporary form, but
right.
we're a governing body that has a very long history and consistency with a hyphen. So I'm just wondering why we're spending so much time on a hyphen.
We actually have an inconsistency.
We have
Where
to
is the
standardize. The
consistency?
inconsistency is that it appears in both forms throughout our throughout the bylaws. So we want to standardize on one or the other.
I see.
And so the question
Okay.
is, which one do we standardize on?
Is it even
I say just pick one. Let's move on.
flip a coin?
Well,
So
the
I am-
clerk already did.
I think I'm next, Terry.
Let's just
You
pick
are
one.
next, although I will point out that town council has raised his hand.
Okay. Well, I yield to no one in my observation that we spend far too much time on stuff like this. But I will also say that were I able to vote on this, I would be voting for bylaw with a hyphen rather than bylaw without a hyphen, in
It's like
part
a finger
because
on
it
the scale here. Wow.
in part because it established, hey, I this is like once in 4 years, man. And it's about the least substantive thing you could possibly imagine.
You're
And that-
throwing the vote,
and
Dennis.
I'll tell you why. It's because it reads to me like a proper noun in that way, a noun that has some sort of significance and is meaningful in its own right. And so I prefer that sort of old-fashioned nature because of the historical nature of our bylaws.
I apologize that I brought this up. I said it was minor.
I'm waiting for someone to abstain because they have some financial conflict of interest on this.
All right, well, we haven't had a second on
If
this
you're in the
motion yet.
ink business, you might have a conflict.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Joe, do you have a comment?
I just want for folks to understand, there is an inconsistency in our bylaws that we're trying to fix. There is an inconsistency at the state that we can't point to one thing that says this is right versus that. The courts do not use a hyphen. The legislature does use a hyphen. So my only interest is we pick one. So pick one, but there is actually no right answer. Bylaw is with a hyphen is a little acronistic. If you actually want to be even more acronistic, you could spell it with an E, by BYE hyphen LAW. So I just
moved.
ask that you be consistent and pick one. So.
All right, so I think at
One
this point,
comment
we're
on
going
the-
to
on the
take,
length- If I, one comment on the length of time, right? Don't confuse the length of time. It's 8 o'clock. If this started at 10:15, we would be done in like 45 seconds with this. So we give it a 2. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
all right, so we have an amendment offered by Elisa Jonas to standardize on bylaw without a hyphen. I am going to move to the vote on that. Michael Berger. Yes is no hyphen. No is yes hyphen.
He may have left us. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
no Ben, no Harry, no Cliff. Anthony.
Advisory committee vote yes, I vote no to save the hyphen.
Elise.
I'm a historian. I'm gonna save the hyphen.
Harry.
I will join my colleagues and vote no.
David Mark.
As a person with a hyphen in his name, I would like to thank Elise and the others and vote no, and urge everyone else to vote no. Save the hyphen.
Neil votes yes.
Susan.
No.
Perry. No. Kelly. Is Kelly here now?
Yes, and my answer is no. So it was yes, I'm here, and I am pro hyphen, so no.
Okay. Elisa.
Well, my daughters have a hyphen in their last name, but I'm still saying yes.
Janice.
Oh, save the hyphen. I'm a no.
Brian.
No.
Alec.
After much consideration, no.
Carol.
I'll do whatever my autocorrect tells me to do, so I'm going to abstain.
Pam.
No.
Jocelyn.
Well, I just want to point out that the oldest version of all is bylaw BYE LAW.
I'd vote
So if we're going with history, we would change it to that, but I am a yes.
Donnell.
Yes.
Linda.
Save the hyphen, no.
Fran.
I always thought bylaw was a weird word, so I vote no.
David.
No.
Carlos.
No.
Margaret.
Yes.
Lee.
You know, there was a woman who worked for me many years ago. She used to spell nonetheless with 2 hyphens. And I always spent time editing her text to get rid of it. But in this case, I want to keep the hyphen, so I'm a no.
Did she go on to get a job at the New Yorker with umlauts and the like?
I think she just sold her business to New York, to CBS for 150 million. No, it's not her.
Okay. Christine.
I'm going to abstain because I could care less either way.
All right.
You know, I'd almost agree with you on that. And how many man hours or person hours did we just waste on this?
All right, the motion failed. So now we're going to go back to the main motion, which is for favorable action on warrant article 4 as amended to include the Olmsted and aging and independence references. Michael. He's not here.
He's
Blah, blah,
not
blah.
here.
Down to Anthony.
Yes.
Elise.
Yes, but how are we spelling homestead? I'm just kidding.
Oh. It's however it's supposed to be. Is it this?
No, yes.
There's
It
no A
removes-
in it.
It removes the A.
Thank you.
Yeah, it should get rid of the A.
Okay, I stand corrected. Scrivener's error. Harry,
No.
David, Mark,
I'm gonna go with Harry and say no.
Neil,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes.
Janice,
I'm an abstain. I'm not sure it's ready.
Brian,
Yes.
Alec,
With appreciation for the town clerk's hard work on this, yes.
Carol,
Abstain again.
Pam,
Yes.
Jocelyn,
Sorry, yes.
Donnell,
I'm gonna abstain.
Linda.
Yes, because we have to reward the clerk for all of his work, because remember, he wanted us to give him the power to do it without anyone voting for it or not. So we have to reward him for doing the right thing.
Fran,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Lee,
I'm with Harry. No.
Christine.
Abstain.
Okay, by a vote of 16 in favor, 3 opposed, and 4 abstentions, we recommend favorable action on warrant Article 4 as amended. Harry, you want to give us an update on what
Sure.
is happening in the next couple of meetings?
So we're meeting this Thursday night. We're meeting over Zoom this Thursday night, and we're doing 2 resolutions. Warrant Article 14 on contact information for public officials, and warrant Article 16, a resolution regarding women's professional basketball. Next week, we are not meeting on Tuesday, the 14th at all. We will meet on Thursday, the 16th. It will be a Zoom only, and we will be doing the warrant Article 9, the Renter's Handbook, warrant Article 13, a resolution on older population / Fisher Hill property, and warrant Article 10 on the renaming of a baseball diamond.
Great. Thank you so much. So we will see you on Thursday.
Bye.
In tiny little boxes. Oh, yeah, David, yes?
Yeah,
Were you-
not that anybody should take the extra time, but the land use subcommittee is meeting on warrant Article 7 tomorrow on Zoom tomorrow at 6 p.m., which is the first public meeting around the proposed multifamily overlay zoning district to reuse the building that the public schools of Brookline rented for 5 years and that Maimonides hasn't used in a number of years, and that was sold to a new owner in March. That will then next week proceed to the planning board. Then we've scheduled another land use subcommittee for early the following week in case we don't conclude our recommendation tomorrow, and then it'll come to advisory in a couple weeks. So if you're interested in a sort of a relatively large real estate project, the fireworks start tomorrow night.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everyone. See you soon.
Good night.